Welcome to another episode of the Illinicast, brought to you by fans of the Illini for the fans of the Illini. We're able to do this because of your love and support. So if you got no problems with it, just hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Do us a little favor, helps little channels like us grow. We would be greatly indebted to you. It's Austin and my goal to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the calendar year. So we have about 5-6 weeks left. So if you can help us out on that regards, we'd really, really appreciate it. Today, Austin is en route to Kansas City for Thanksgiving for the holidays. So happy holidays to Austin and happy holidays to all of you listening to this. I'm going to basically start us off talking about that Iowa game, that oh so close Iowa game. Then we're going to bring on a very special guest. We'll do a little preview of the Big Ten. We'll talk about the game, and we'll talk about whatever else comes to mind. So we appreciate your patience, and let's just get started. The big news, obviously, was released yesterday. Jason Newton, Keith Randolph. Oh wait, no. Actually, we're going to start with the Iowa post game. Let's start with that first. There's a lot of pissed off people on Illini Twitter. A lot of people think that we gave that game away. A lot of people very upset, and I'm not saying that I disagree with that. I think we had the game, but I was also kind of watching that game with a held breath because I knew Iowa does what it does, and they're just waiting for the mistake. And that's just kind of what they did on that final drive. We had those two defensive penalties. We gave them extra yardage. And when you give Iowa that opening, when you give them that extra yardage, they're always going to capitalize. That's just what the Iowa Hawkeyes do. And a lot of people are upset. That makes us 1-4 against what's arguably the worst division in college football history. And, from a macro point of view, I agree. That looks very bad. But not everything is about the macro view. Sometimes you have to look, context matters. Those first couple of games against Purdue, Nebraska, those are embarrassing. And those, I think, we all wish we could play again today because I feel confident that would be at least a touchdown favorite against Purdue. And I don't even know what that disaster against Nebraska, that Friday night game on ESPN, I have no idea what happened there. But our season has turned around since then. Especially, no one expected us to win against Maryland, and we were clearly the better team in that game. We outplayed Wisconsin for 3 quarters the next game, and then, of course, Jason Newton gets ejected for that, I'll say, questionable call, the targeting call. And, Maryland scores 18 straight points, and they overcome and they win. Unfortunate for us. We can't just be a Newton ejection away from losing. Granted, I get that, but I'm just saying we performed very well that game. We come back, we beat Minnesota. Thankfully, John Paddock comes in that fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, goes 3 for 3, 88 yards. And of course, everyone saw the Indiana game, which was just the opposite of what you kind of expect a Big Ten game to be. Now, a lot of people didn't like my takes after that Iowa game, where I said I wasn't really that pissed off. And let me kind of tell you why. When we hired Brett Bielema a little less than 3 years ago now, our goals, our aspirations on a best case scenario was that we wanted to reach the Minnesota tier. We wanted to be right there with the Iowas, the top teams in the Big Ten West. That's who we wanted to compete with. We wanted to contend for that Big Ten West title. What we've basically done for the last 4 or 5 weeks is been arguably the best team in the Big Ten West. I guess you can say second best because Iowa just beat us head to head, but it was in Kinnick Stadium. And that's kind of my point. Here we were on Saturday night playing in Kinnick Stadium against a team that was 8-2 at the time, 8-2 or 9-2. We were winning the game for the better part of the game, and it took Iowa at the end with one of those Iowa plays, which they always do, to come through and ultimately snatch victory from us. We we're down running backs. At one point we had a converted linebacker come in to play running back. Caden Fagan is gone. So John Paddock, as hot as he was forced to throw that ball 47 times on Saturday. Throwing 47 times against Iowa, that's telling one of the best defenses in the country that you're basically telegraphing your offense. And Phil Parker, that's just, you're handing him candy at that point. So for me, I was ultimately kind of looking at the micro big picture, in the sense that we've competed with in every single game for the last 4 or 5 weeks. I think if the season started against Maryland and right now we had 5 more weeks, we would be in contention for the Big Ten West. Obviously, a bunch of what ifs. That's just not how this thing's worked. But what I saw on Saturday was the Fighting Illini go toe-to-toe with clearly the best team in the Big Ten West in Kinnick Stadium, where, after halftime, that it was nighttime out there. And Iowa at night in Kinnick Stadium is one of the toughest places you're going to play in all of college football. So again, that's where I come from. I know a lot of people don't agree with me, which is completely fine. Please leave some comments if you do agree with me, don't agree with me. This next game is going to be vital. Obviously, now we're kicking ourselves more for losing that game to Purdue and Nebraska, because now bowl eligibility is going to come down to the last game of the season against, the surprise of the college football season. So I just want to get that off my chest, get that out. I'm good. I'm clearing. I'm moving on. And what I'm going to do is bring on a very special guest. Let's bring him on right now, Jackson Johnson. If you follow college football at all on YouTube, it's just a matter of time before this young fella shows up on your algorithm, because he's on every single show, seemingly every single day that I see. So it's an honor, Jackson, for you to come on to Illinicast.
Oh, thank you for having me on it. It's an honor that you asked me to come on Illinicast. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, with Austin not in town, I just wanted someone who I can banter back and forth with. And if there's one thing I know, your college football. You're more of a national guy, but sometimes it's nice to have a national opinion too, and not have the show be so Illinois or Big Ten centric. Jackson, can you at least let my followers know right now, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter, they can find me on Instagram, and they can find me on YouTube.com/@JacksonJohnson979. I am 248 subs away from getting to 500, and I'm more than 1/4 of the way to getting to 1,000. So you'll see some pretty good content on there as well. But I may not know all that much about Illinois, and not like this guy next to me, but I'm learning.
No, I'm not worried about that at all. Definitely give this guy a follow. Again, he does great work on YouTube. He's going to show up constantly. He's one of the brighter stars of college football YouTube, in my opinion. Jackson, let's start off. It's going to be an Illinois-centric topic, but the question I'm going to ask you is not really just based on Illinois. So Keith Randolph, Jazon Newton, they both announced yesterday that they're going to play in the NFL next year. Isaiah Williams, our wide receiver, said he's currently undecided on whether he wants to come back for his 6th season. Should he do so, he's going to basically own every Illinois wide receiver record. So hopefully Illinois fans can sign up with Icon, which is Illinois' NIL program, and conjure up the funds to get Isaiah Williams to stay. But back to Newton and Randolph. Newton had said that should Illinois beat Northwestern on Saturday and make a bowl game, that he's going to sit out the bowl game. Keith Randolph says right now he's undecided on what he wants to do with the bowl game. And once that announcement was made, folks got angry. Folks, and this happens pretty much every year, and this is obviously not with just Illinois players. Like, whenever prominent players decide that they're going to sit out the bowl game to kind of secure their future for the NFL draft and not risk getting hurt. The fans who may not quite understand, they start attacking the player. You know, you have people asking to return scholarships and this and that. So, Jackson, I'm curious, like, where do you stand on all this? Players just who, have successful seasons, successful careers, and decide to not play in the bowl game.
I think back to the 2016 Fiesta Bowl when Ohio State and Notre Dame played each other. And there's this guy at Notre Dame named Smith, and he was first round material. But then he got hurt in the Fiesta Bowl. And I think a lot of these guys are thinking, I don't want my draft stock dropping down like Mr. Smith did. And I'll be honest, when I was younger, I used to get pretty mad at players that didn't want to play in the bowl game. But as I've gotten older, I'm just kind of like, they have families to look after. They got their siblings, they got their parents, they got the wife and kids. They got to look after those around them, and not just themselves. They got their own futures as well. So I don't blame the players for wanting to sit out the bowl game. And plus, it gives more experience to the second stringers and third stringers on the roster.
Yeah, that's kind of where I come from. Now I'm a little older than you. Like, I'm a dad of two, and like for me, I kind of understand. Like, I don't know. I'm just going to use our two players as examples. I don't know Drazon Newton and Keith Randolph's familial situation. I don't know if they come from money or this or that, but Drazon Newton has brought in an incredible amount of value to the Illinois brand over his entire career here playing football for us. He's been a man on the mission. He's, a finalist for almost every single defensive award this year. He could have gone to the draft last year. I was actually shocked that he decided to come back to play football this year. Pleasantly shocked, of course. And now this year, I'm seeing mock drafts with him in the top 20.
Wow.
One of the first defensive tackles taken. I think he should be a top 10 pick personally. And to pass up that kind of generational money, I mean, you're talking about huge multi-million, seven-figure bonus money there for what happens to be like overall, let's be honest, what are bowl games now if you're not in the top tier? They're just kind of glorified exhibition games. Like I would argue the 15 extra practices that you're awarded is more valuable than the actual game itself. So for me, when I kind of look at it from the big picture, we see what happened with Devin Witherspoon last year. He had a fantastic senior year. He shot up the draft boards. He also didn't play the bowl game. And guess what? He went fourth overall to the Seattle Seahawks. And now he's one of the front runners to become the defensive rookie of the year. Now, like, how can I blame Drazon Newton? Like, what if he gets hurt in a meaningless bowl game? All of a sudden, his draft stock falls from top 20 to third, fourth, or worst case out of the draft if it's a serious injury. It's just if Drazon Newton was my son, this is the exact advice I would give him. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you don't want another situation of Matt Corral from the 2022 Sugar Bowl. And plus the naysayers that are mad at the players for wanting to not play in the bowl game. I'll say this, maybe they should be in like a Freaky Friday situation, just kind of switch lives with them, then come back and tell us what they should do, what they shouldn't do, honestly.
Yeah, it's very easy to be a keyboard warrior, but
Or a couch warrior
right, and but like you
drinking the
said,
beer.
Freaky Friday situation. It's their son in that position, and in 8 months, you're staring at a $12 million signing bonus check. It's like, okay, you know what? Just go ahead and sit out. That's my personal opinion.
That's true.
Moving on, let's go ahead and talk about apparently, it's rivalry week in the Big Ten, as you're well aware. Some pretty big games going on. Actually, you know what? I had another topic come to mind, if you don't mind, Jackson.
Right with me.
I don't know if you've heard rumors, but supposedly Jonathan Smith has been targeted by Michigan State for
Ooh,
the head coaching job.
wow.
Now, before we get into that, I had a question which I've been asking. I asked our Twitter account from our Twitter account, and I'm asking, media personalities in the Big Ten sphere. Let's just say Tom Allen gets let go. Let's say UCLA fires Chip Kelly. I know with the win against USC, that may not happen now, but let's just say, for the sake of this argument, that he gets let go. So you have three job openings. You have UCLA, Michigan State, and you have Indiana. How would you rate the three jobs' attractiveness in order?
Well, I'd rank UCLA number one because they got that LA market. And, if you know how to recruit in California, you're good to go. And second, you got Michigan State. And I feel like it's a pretty hard job, but then again, somebody forgot to tell that to Mark D'Antonio, which he did a magnificent job over there. And third of all is Indiana, which historically they have not done so hot. I mean, the only good year I can really find is the COVID year from 2020. And I remember 2007 where they were bowl eligible for the first time since the 90s. Holy cow, that was a memorable moment.
Yeah, I think we both can agree on Indiana being the third best. We can just.
They're going to be punished in the next few years.
It's going to be tough, but hopefully, Illinois is not in the same position. But but that just shows you
I
how
can't look.
yeah,
I
shows you
can't
how
look at the
important
Indiana.
this next hire is going to be for Indiana. So let's just get that out of the way. We agree Indiana's number three. And at first thought, I actually agreed with you that UCLA being in that market was the number one job. But the more I kind of just thought about it to myself, and I started digging around some of the stats, I think a lot of what the attractiveness of a job is your ability to win a national championship, college football playoff or national championship. And you just brought up Mike D'Antoni from, what was it, 2009. They finished third in the entire country. They've actually been to the college football playoff. Some people tend to forget about that, but they've actually been there.
Yep,
And
2015.
it seems like eons ago, but even Mel Tucker in 2021 had them ranked as high as third in the college football playoff rankings. And UCLA, looking at them, like they haven't reached that level. Um, and I think I saw like under Carl Durrell. I got to look at this again.
Oh, they disappointed everybody in 2007 in that last season with Carl Durrell.
Right, like you're talking, like they're looking at, their highs is usually around the seventh ranked, 10th rank. I'm looking at all seasons since 2004. The highest they've finished is seventh. I see a bunch of sevens there, a bunch of nine. And I agree with you about the LA market, but I feel like that LA market is kind of all swallowed up by USC.
Yep. And the
You know,
Dodgers and the Rams and the Lakers.
Lakers, there's just, I don't, when I think of UCLA football in particular, like, I don't see a rowdy fan base. And this is easy for me to say,
Yeah,
I'm
the
from
home
Illinois.
bay the home field advantage isn't that exactly intimidating. We learned that against Arizona State this year and Arizona last year.
Exactly right. So, like, I just don't know if the rabid fan base is there for UCLA to really count on the LA market. I think Michigan State, their alums, their fans, they care. They want to beat Michigan so badly. They've got donors. What's his name? Matt Ishba, the guy who's been kind of bankrolling them for the last decade or so. Now he's the new owner of the
Wow.
Phoenix Suns. They have money and they have fan support. And based on their history of being able to, at one point, be in the top three in the college football playoff rankings in the last decade, twice, they've done it twice, kind of made me think that Michigan State might actually be the more overall attractive job. What do you think?
I could see that, like, with the home field advantage, UCLA not having that much of a home field advantage. But I will say for Michigan State, it'll be much tougher to compete in the Big Ten once USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington arrive. Now, I'm not saying they can't be able to do what Mark D'Antonio did, but I'm saying it's going to be tougher for East Lansing.
But it'll also be tougher for UCLA to now have to deal with Ohio State, Michigan,
Oh,
Penn State. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, at least for UCLA and Michigan State, we're kind of comparing apples to apples there.
true.
But yeah, I just wanted your opinion on it. I think it's an interesting topic. I wanted to kind of get it out there before, Michigan State makes a potential hire, just because I thought it was, something interesting to talk about. But
Oh, it'll be fun watching Michigan State UCLA as a conference game. I mean, I wonder if there's a lot of historians that remember the 65 regular season matchup and the 66 Rose Bowl where UCLA spoiled Michigan State's natty hopes that year.
I don't even know what you're talking about. In fact, this is what I mean, ladies and gentlemen. Jackson knows a lot about college football. He's a must follow if you're a fan of the sport. Um, but
I appreciate
moving
it.
on. If you're a fan of the sport, everyone knows that there's one massive game upcoming on Saturday. Let's just get that one out of the way. It's Michigan. It's Ohio State. I think this is going to break every single television record in the history of college football, including, what was it, 2007? I think, when they were 1-2, essentially
That
fighting
was
for
2006 on
2006.
ABC.
Yeah, fighting for essentially the national championship at that point. We all know about Jim Harbaugh, the Stallions, all that shenanigans, and that's been going on and dominating the airwaves for the last 5-6 weeks now. And now finally, we get to see what happens on the field on Saturday. Last check, Michigan was a 3.5 point favorite. That's moved down from about a month ago. A month ago when I checked, it was around 7.5. So obviously, Michigan's playing okay. Ohio State, I feel like, is kind of getting better every single week, and with Harbaugh out, I think that's what kind of has brought the line down pretty significantly. So I'm curious, Jackson. Like, I don't know. It's up to you whether you want to make a prediction or not. But otherwise, let's just give us a preview. What's your opinion on the match?
Well, I'll give a little quick preview. The red zone offense is going to be key. Now, Michigan is 50th in the red zone on offense, and Ohio State is 60th on the red zone offense. Now, I have a feeling both of these schools have been waiting for this game to bring out the best. And what I think is going to happen is you're going to see this game go to 4 overtimes, and it's going to be a Michigan 31-29 victory.
4 overtimes. If
And
you get this prediction right, you're going to go viral, right? Like, we're going to post that all over social media, and like the guy who predicted 4 overtimes for the game, you're gonna get your 250 subs or get to 1,000 immediately if you get that one right.
Well, I hope so, but I mean, knowing how this rivalry works, it's gonna be tough. I mean, they both bring the best out. I mean, it's this is a win or go home game for Michigan because if they lose, that's it for them. As for Ohio State, I got a feeling they just need a lot of luck to get in if they lose, but if they win, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can see that. It would be a lot of luck, but there is a path for Ohio State. Should a couple different teams lose this upcoming weekend. Now, usually, some people know. My wife is a Buckeye. She graduated from Ohio State, so usually when I watch this game, I have a slight bias towards Ohio State. But I can say for sure the Saturday that I'm completely neutral because seeing the vitriol and just how both fan bases have been going at it
Sorry,
on social.
Mrs. Verma. I don't. I'm just. This is business. Sorry.
Exactly, this is business. It's it's tough for me. Like, on one hand, of course, I'd like to see Ohio State come through with the victory and just to get the monkey off their back. I like Ryan Day. I think he's getting cheated out of the hole. If he loses 3 times in a row, he should be fired. I think that's ridiculous for a coach who wins 90+% of his games for you. But on the other hand, with everything that we know about Michigan, there's a lot of Ohio State fans who are saying the only reason we lost the last 2 years is because of Michigan cheating. There's some kind of poetry where if Michigan comes in this year and just beats the bejesus out of them again, like 41-17 or 37-14, something like that, where there'll be so much, crawling back tail between your legs from Ohio State fans that from my neutral perspective would kind of just be entertaining to watch. So this is the first time in years, at least since my wife graduated, that I I'm not going to pick a side at all. But in order to make a prediction, both have awesome defenses, incredible defenses. I actually think this game is going to come down to who plays better, JJ McCarthy or McCord. I think whichever quarterback has a better game, that team ends up winning. Obviously, JJ's, I think, clearly the more talented quarterback, but he struggled the past couple of weeks. And, if you follow JR from the Big Ten huddle, he loves to, noted Ohio State fan, I might add, he loves to show all the stats of that JJ's accumulated in games where Connor or Stallions supposedly is not associated to the scouting, like that particular game. Those numbers are drastically lower than the ones that Stallions did scout. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think ultimately, the game being in Ann Arbor, I think Michigan wins this game, and I think it's going to be a little higher scoring than a lot of people are saying. I know both defenses are amazing, but I just think this game is different. The energy of this game is different. Especially in particular, the Michigan players, I feel like they have so much that they want to let loose on the Scarlet and Gray. So I'm going to go with a 35-21 victory by the Wolverines, and which is just going to shut Ohio State fans up pretty, embarrassingly. And the rest of us will kind of enjoy, uh, you know, that car accident on the side of the road, just trying to drive by slowly and look at all the wreckage. Uh, all right. Next game. I'm just going to list games in order of what I deem as importance. Let's do the Black Friday, Iowa and Nebraska. That's going to be, I don't know what the word is. Not an amazing game, but we're talking about an over under, which at some point earlier today was down to 25. I think it has shot up to 25 and a half now. But what do you think? Iowa, Nebraska, I think was favored by 1.5. Iowa's already clinched the Big Ten West,
Yeah.
so they could be resting their players. That doesn't seem like a very Iowa thing to do. But what are your thoughts on that game?
I'll be honest, I've been shocked by Nebraska's collapse, but I think they're still kind of cursed by Scott Frost. But I have a feeling the Scott Frost curse ends on Black Friday with a 17-14 victory. Why? The running game of Nebraska. It's 26th in the nation. I believe it's going to get the job done for Nebraska. As for Iowa, that offense is going to come close, but no cigar.
And Nebraska may have found their quarterback. I thought Joba Purdy did, pretty well in their last game. Obviously,
Anybody but Jeff Sims.
oh yeah, I mean, I'd be shocked to see him wearing a Nebraska uniform next year. So, what other games? So, Friday night we also have Penn State and Michigan State. I can't imagine this game being too close. What do you think?
Well, I know Top Blackledge's going to be pretty happy because he's calling his alma mater on Black Friday. I got a feeling this is going to be an annual occurrence where we see not one but two Black Friday games for the Big Ten. I just hope next year they put like Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Washington, Oregon. But I digress. This is going to be a butt whipping, and it's going to be 42-17 Penn State as they get out the belt and clinch a New Year's Six bid.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this game is pretty much over by halftime, and Penn State tries to run the ball in the second half, just tries to get through the game healthy. I'll say 31-10 Penn State.
Oh, man. I will
Just go.
say it's pretty exciting to see a November night game on Rivalry Week for the Big Ten. I'm so excited about it, and
It
especially
should
on
be fun.
Black Friday.
Right,
Black Friday
exactly.
is my favorite holiday. I didn't realize till I was 15 that Black Friday was a shopping day. I thought it was a college football holiday, honestly, where you just watch college football.
No, I've always known Thanksgiving as the Egg Bowl, which is one of my favorite traditions. So, I'm definitely looking forward to that tomorrow. But
It's gonna be
I could definitely get into the habit of watching more of Big Ten football on Friday nights.
there we go.
Uh,
Sweet.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. We have what I perceive as the toilet bowl. We have Indiana and Purdue.
Yeah, that is one.
I don't know if Tom Allen can really salvage his job at this point, but I feel like he needs to. It's going to be really hard for an Indiana football program to tell its fans that we finished 3-9 this season, losing our last three games and losing our rivalry game to a Purdue team, which many consider the worst in the Big Ten. It's going to be tough to kind of sell that to a fan base. What do you think?
I think the writing's on the wall. The Tom Allen era is over. Black Sunday is coming in Bloomington, Indiana for Mr. Allen. And I think Purdue's gonna basically put Indiana out of its misery with a 28-24 victory.
Oh wow. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty high scoring. I think I guess have they announced anything on Hudson Card? Do you know if he's playing or not?
Not yet. I have no clue what's going on with Mr. Card.
Okay, I think if Hudson Card plays, not many people are paying attention to Purdue just because they haven't been performing really well and they've got a lot of people hurt. But they've looking at their stats, they've kind of established an identity as a pretty good running team. They've got a pretty good scheme put together. They've got a couple running backs. I think you know what I like Tom Allen. He's a really nice guy. I don't know if he's a very good. I don't think he's a very good head coach. I think he's an outstanding defensive coordinator. So I'm going to be nice. I think he's going to lose his job regardless. So let's send him off with a victory. So I'll just say 35-28 Indiana, and Tom
Wow.
Allen gets to go off to the sunset and get the. If I were UCLA or sorry USC or someone, I would consider just throwing him a huge bag of money. And he's familiar with Big Ten offenses already. He's been coaching here for so long. I think that would be an A+ hire for USC as defensive coordinator.
It would be.
But next we have Wisconsin at Minnesota.
Oh
Any
man,
thoughts?
that game's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
When I look back at this game, I remember Wisconsin dominated it from 2004 2017, but since PJ Fleck's second year, Minnesota is 3-2 against Wisconsin. And the question is, can PJ Fleck and the Minnesota Golden Gophers continue the dominance against Wisconsin? And one other thing's on the line, ball eligibility. I want to say Minnesota's going. I really want to because I love PJ Fleck. But I have to say it's going to be a 24-21 victory for Wisconsin. And Minnesota, unfortunately, is not going to a ball game. I will say that Iowa game has really gone to Minnesota's head.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think these are pretty two evenly matched teams. You're not going to find many Big Ten people outside Minnesota fans who share your opinion on PJ Fleck. The rest of us kind of find him annoying, but I think the row the boat works on Saturday. I think because the game's at home, that they're able to eke it out. I think there's some issues with Wisconsin. I think Luke Fickell was an amazing hire. I think it's still a good hire, but all the articles I've been reading over the last couple weeks, a lot of players worn out. There's going to be a lot of change in the off season. I just think that program right now is kind of in disarray. So I think I'm just going to go with the safer team, and that's going to be Minnesota at home, and I'll just say 24-14 Minnesota.
That's good prediction right there. But I will say, I wish people would just kind of cut Luke Fickle some slack. If it's his 5th year, then okay, it's okay to say the air raid's not working. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater on a first year coach. Don't do that. I always
Yeah,
hate it when people do that.
it's ridiculous. The next game is Maryland at Rutgers. I think this is going to be a sneaky good game. Uh,
Oh yeah.
it's Maryland. They're such a Jekyll and Hyde team. We start off 5-0. They're competing with Ohio State for the first half, and then they kind of get blown out the second half, and then they just go kind of on a nosedive. They play both Illinois teams, and they come out on the losing end, and then they compete with Michigan last week. In what was a game that was a lot closer than anyone would have predicted. So, and Rutgers is Rutgers. Rutgers was one of the surprise teams of the country the first 7 weeks of the season, and they've already clinched bowl eligibility. What do you think?
I will be honest. There's a reason I called Maryland the Syracuse of the Big Ten. They tend to forget how to play football after they play Ohio State. And
Yeah,
if Mike,
it seems like they
it,
really step up for the big teams. The Ohio State and Michigan, and then everyone else, they're just like they've expended all their energy on the two big teams that they just kind of play to the level of everyone else after that.
and I will say, if Mike Loxley doesn't watch himself, he's gonna wind up like Dino Babers real soon. So he better quit that collapsing hooey. Luckily for him, they're not having Ohio State next year. But I did look at their schedule. It looks pretty easy. And then they'll probably have like their great first half against USC and then fall apart and forget how to play football afterwards. But I think Maryland's going to lose a tight one to Rutgers, 24-21.
I actually think I agree with that. I'm going to say Rutgers wins 21-17, and Maryland has a lot of questions. Like Mike Loxley, he can recruit and he can beat up on cupcakes, but at some point, as you were talking about, Maryland Terrapins fans have to kind of decide what they want the ceiling of their program to be. Are they content with 7-8 wins a year? Are they even going to be able to get that 7-8 wins a year next year when we get the influx of the teams from out west? So, they've got a lot of decisions to make. Speaking of decisions to make, I think we're down to the last game, and the last game, of course, being the Illinois and Northwestern game. I'm going to say my prediction for a future podcast I'm having with the Wild Chat, the Northwestern podcast partner of the Big Banter Network. But Jackson, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game.
Well, I will say I'm pretty impressed with how Northwestern, with what they've accomplished this season with David Braun. I don't want to call it early, but that's my coach of the year for the Big Ten right there. And they did good hiring him. And Illinois, I hate that they've collapsed, but I wasn't expecting them to compete for the Big Ten West again, but fighting for bowl eligibility. Sorry, Illinois Nation, but I don't think you're gonna have another year like this next year. It should be better. But I do believe you guys can clinch bowl eligibility with a 31-24 victory over Northwestern.
That's what I love to hear. It's going to be a huge game for us. I agree with you. But on through another lens, this was a clear rebuilding year for Illinois. We lost, three key guys in our secondary, in the top 70 picks in the NFL draft. And for a rebuilding transition year for Illinois to be able to make a bowl game, win 6 games, that's unheard of for someone like me who's been an Illinois fan for, a little over a decade now. I'll take that. If that's kind of our floor from this point moving forward, considering what our floor used to be, which is like 2-3 wins and just blowouts every week. I think I'll take a 6-win season every now and then.
There you go. Well, I do have one question. Was
Sure.
last season better, or was 2007 when y'all beat Ohio State with Juice Williams better?
It's got to be beating Ohio State. That year
I
had
figured.
so much energy. It was talked about so much. Like last year, obviously we all love the 7-1 start, but we kind of faltered at the end. You know,
Well,
uh, it was a team that just wasn't ready for the spotlight yet,
yeah.
and it kind of showed. So both teams had some amazing players on it. Both teams had a player named Isaiah Williams on it, which is kind of funny if you think about it. But yeah, it's I can't imagine. It's going to be hard for a team to pass that 2007 team in from an Illini perspective of just how much we kind of just loved, and that season was just magical.
Oh man, that was pretty historic, man. Especially y'all going to Rose Bowl. That was awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's the last time we've been to the Rose Bowl. But all right, to wrap things up, Jackson, can you once again tell my fine listeners and followers where they can find you on the internet?
Well, they can find me at Twitter at Jackson09960335. And they can find me at Instagram at JacksonJohnson543908 and on YouTube.com/ at JacksonJohnson979, where you can find some of my Jacksonion episodes, some of my random reactions of some of the latest games in all college football and NFL, and so on and so forth. Of course, you can see me run my mouth on Threads and Twitter every now and again, and a little bit on Instagram.
Thank you again so much, Jackson, for joining us. Thank
Thank you for
you,
having me on.
of course. Thank you to the Illini Cast listeners for the downloads, the viewerships. Again, every single one counts. Please share this with all your Illini friends and family, and college football friends and family, and every little subscription helps us towards our goal, towards 100. That's enough for this episode. We're going to release the Northwestern preview episode in the next day or two as well. And until then, we'll talk to you later.